Okay, let's talk about something I think a lot of people experience. Do you ever feel stuck? Like, thousands of English words, right? You can read, you understand pretty well, but then when you actually try to speak, it's like the words just don't come out smoothly. You hesitate, maybe worry a bit about your accent, and it just feels, well, frustrating. So what if I told you there's this technique, something polyglots, people who speak lots of languages and even professional interpreters use, a way to fix that exact problem. Kind of a shortcut to sounding, well, more natural and fluent pretty fast. Today, we're doing a deep dive into one of the most powerful exercises out there for fluency. It's called shadowing. Think of it like an echo, almost. You listen to a native speaker, and then you immediately repeat what they say. You're mimicking everything, the pronunciation, the rhythm, the intonation, or, picture your own shadow following your every single move. Shadowing and language learning is pretty much the same idea. You're speaking right along with the native speaker.
Yeah, and what's really fascinating here, I think, is how it shifts the focus. It's not just about learning vocabulary, individual words. It's more about the music of the language. You're actually training the physical muscles, your mouth, your tongue. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, the goal is really closing that gap between knowing the word in your head and being able to actually say it instantly without thinking too much.
And we're doing this with a bit of a secret weapon, actually. We're using sentences built from the 5,000 most common English words. Get this, studies show these words make up over 90% of everyday spoken English. 90%. So by practicing with these words, you're basically prepping for real-world conversations. It's a massive shortcut to handling almost any daily interaction you can think of, right? This deep dive is designed to be 100% interactive. Seriously. So if you can, find a quiet spot, maybe put on some headphones, get ready to actually speak along with us. Ready? Okay, let's go. All right, let's unpack this a little bit more then. We've touched on what shadowing is, but let's really dig into why it's highlighted as being so effective. A lot of people think fluency just comes from learning more words, right? More vocabulary, but our deep dive into the research suggests something almost counterintuitive. It's not just the number of words, it's the quality of your delivery. That's what seems to unlock that natural sounding speech. You describe speaking as a physical act, mouth, tongue, lips, all muscles. How does this physical practice really help overcome that psychological barrier, that fear people have?
That's a really great question, and it's definitely a key insight. Think of this practice like a workout, but for your speech muscles. Shadowing trains them. It helps them make the English sounds correctly, more automatically, without you having to consciously think about every single sound. That's building muscle memory. And that's absolutely crucial for speaking effortlessly. And yes, by giving you that physical confidence, knowing you can make the sounds, it directly tackles that mental block, that fear.
So it's not just about the individual sounds then, is it? It's more the flow, the rhythm.
Absolutely. Exactly. Yeah. Fluency isn't just getting the words right. It's the rhythm, the intonation, the music of the language, like you said earlier. Shadowing helps you internalize all of that. The way the voice rises and falls, the stress on certain words, where the natural pauses go. That's how native speakers convey so much meaning beyond just the dictionary definitions. And this is where, the insights from interpreters really came through in the sources.
That's really powerful, the idea of bypassing translation. It does sound almost like learning music, doesn't it? Like playing an instrument. You're not just hitting the right notes, but playing them with the right timing, the right feel, the emotion. But okay, some learners, especially at the start, they really rely on translating in their head to understand. Did the sources talk about how to balance that, understanding versus just producing the sounds?
Oh, they absolutely do. And there's some interesting stuff from neurolinguistics research here. It suggests that shadowing actually helps rewire your brain, essentially, because you're speaking at almost the same time as the native speaker. You start to bypass that internal translation step, the one that often slows learners down. It trains your brain to, think more directly in English and produce the words almost instantly. It really closes that gap between understanding something and being able to say something yourself spontaneously. And the sources suggest that if you do this consistently, your brain naturally starts to rely less and less on that translation crutch.
Okay, makes sense. Now for the really practical part, how do you actually do this? Our research, looking at polyglot methods and language acquisition studies, pointed to a pretty neat 3-step process. Actually, you know what? Let's just do it right now. Let's try it. Okay, step 1, just listen. That's it. I'll say a simple sentence, natural pace. Ready? Brief pause. The sun is shining. Brief pause. Got it. Okay, now step 2, listen and repeat. I'll say it again, but a bit slower this time. And you repeat right after me. The sun is shining. Pause for listener. Feel that a bit. Okay, and finally, step 3. This is where the magic happens. Shadow with me. We'll speak at the same time. Don't aim for perfection, okay? Just try to match the flow, the rhythm. Ready? The sun is shining. Host says it. Listener tries to shadow. See how that feels. A bit different, right? We'll guide you through more examples just like this.
And that first step, just listening, it's actually really important. Let your brain absorb the natural rhythm, the intonation, without any pressure to produce it immediately. You're sort of setting the stage for what comes next.
Right. And then step 2, listen and repeat. Same sentence, but slower, with that pause for you. That's your chance to actually try it out, get a feel for making the sounds yourself.
Exactly. It's controlled repetition. You're actively engaging your speech muscles, but also that auditory feedback loop. You hear yourself, you try to reproduce what you heard. It helps reinforce those new patterns.
And then step 3, the shadowing part. Speaking with the speaker. You try to start just a tiny fraction of a second after them. And the key, like we said, isn't perfection right away. It's matching speed and rhythm. Even just mumbling along at first is okay. But hang on, what about picking up bad habits? If someone's just mumbling, maybe not quite getting it right, without feedback, did the sources address that?
Oh, that's a valid concern, absolutely. And the forces do touch on this. They emphasize that at this stage, the simultaneous speaking part, the main focus really is on the flow and the rhythm, more than perfect pronunciation of every single sound. The idea is that the constant exposure to the correct model, the native speaker you're listening to, naturally guides your improvement over time. Your own auditory system is constantly self-correcting, even if you don't realize it. That deep neural rewiring we talked about, it happens because you're actively using both your listening and your speaking systems together. It's incredibly efficient for internalizing the language's natural sound and flow. So really, don't stress too much about small mistakes at this stage. Focus on consistent practice.
Okay, got it. Consistency over perfection, especially at first. So what kind of sentences should people practice with? The resources recommended starting pretty basic, right? And then building up. Like imagine practicing something simple like, hello, how are you? Shadow that. And then maybe the response, I'm doing well, thank you. Simple stuff.
Precisely. You start there, and then it quickly progresses. Maybe phrases like, I like learning English, or, practice makes perfect. The point is really to get your mouth and tongue used to the common sound combinations you hear all the time in everyday speech.
Exactly. And then you can move into slightly faster speeds, maybe repeating lines like, can you help me? Or you're welcome, really trying to match that natural conversational tone. The goal is eventually just repeating it instantly, smoothly.
Yeah, that gradual increase in pace is quite crucial. It builds up your speaking endurance, if you like, and it helps you move from that very deliberate, careful practice to more spontaneous, natural speech. But like how an athlete builds up their speed and agility through drills.
And it gets even more real life. The sources highlighted the power of practicing mini dialogues. This is cool. Imagine practicing both sides of a short conversation. Like, first you shadow, hi, I'm looking for a restaurant nearby. Oh, the shadow the response. There's a good one on Main Street. Or maybe asking, is it far? And then shadowing the answer, no, just 5 minutes away.
That's an interesting point there, because you're not just mimicking isolated sentences anymore. You're starting to internalize the natural back and forth of a real conversation. You're copying the speed, yes, but also the intonation changes between question and answer, maybe even the emotion. That's how true fluency really develops. It's about building that conversational agility.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Beyond full sentences, though, the sources also suggested boosting vocabulary with sort of quick fire round, like you hear a word say, beautiful, you repeat it. Then you immediately hear it in a sentence, the sunset is beautiful, and you shadow that sentence. And you could do this for words like important or decide, forget, enjoy. It really helps you kind of own those words quickly and put them straight into action.
Right. And that approach ensures that vocabulary isn't just learned in a vacuum. It's immediately integrated into natural sentence structures, into context. It strengthens that link between recognizing a word and actually being able to use it actively, which is, let's face it, a common hurdle for many learners.
Okay, now for something that felt like a real game changer in the research, tackling compound sentences, like practicing shadowing. I want to go out, but it's starting to rain. Or, he finished his work, so he decided to watch a movie. You're practicing connecting ideas more smoothly, almost without having to think about the grammar consciously.
And this raises an important point. How do you then move to even more complex stuff? Well, the sources show examples of practicing complex sentences too. and even more natural conversational phrases. Things like, even though it was difficult, I'm glad we made the effort, shadowing that whole chunk. Or perhaps, if you have a moment, I'd love to hear your opinion on this matter. Practicing these really trains your ability to handle those longer, more nuanced expressions with confidence.
And remember that focus on the 5,000 most common words we mentioned earlier. Our deep dive showed how these can be broken down into useful categories for practice. Things like daily actions, descriptive words, social phrases, problem-solving language, even future goals. So you end up practicing shadowing things like wake up, brush your teeth, simple daily stuff. Then maybe extremely happy or absolutely necessary social bits like could you clarify that? Or that's fascinating. Problem solving like what's the issue? Or I'll handle it. And future focused things like I intend to travel or even just dream bigger daily. It really covers the bases for everyday chat.
Yeah, that structured approach, which is a key finding, ensures you get comprehensive coverage of those really high-frequency words. But in various contexts, right?
Right.
Which gives you a much more robust foundation for, well, pretty much any real-world interaction you're likely to have.
Wow. Okay, so if you've been following along, you just practiced over 50 powerful phrases and words today. Seriously. Tackling sentences from simple ones right up to complex, compound, and those natural conversational phrases. You've genuinely been building that muscle memory. You should be really proud of yourself for doing that work.
Definitely. But this raises the important question, doesn't it? How do you keep this momentum going? Remember, consistency is absolutely everything here. The research is clear. 10 minutes of shadowing every day is far, far more effective than trying to cram in 2 hours just once a week. Try to make it part of your daily routine, like brushing your teeth, something you just do, and stepping back, thinking bigger picture. Recording yourself sometimes. I know it can feel a bit scary or awkward at first, but honestly, it's probably the best way to really track your progress and actually hear your own improvements over time. Remember, fluency isn't about perfection. It's about confidence. It's about making your speech flow more naturally.
So, what does all this mean for your fluency journey then? The bottom line, keep shadowing. Every day if you can. Your brain will start thinking more in English, bypassing that slow translation step. Remember the mantra. Speak more, fear less, shadow daily. You've taken a really huge step forward today just by engaging with this. And here's something to think about. If speaking really is a physical act, almost like playing an instrument or learning a sport, how else could you apply this idea, this consistent muscle memory type of practice? Where else could you use it to build effortless skill and mastery in your life? Interesting thought. Anyway, if you found this deep dive helpful, please share it with a friend, anyone you know who wants to speak English more fluently, and maybe a little homework for you. Leave a comment below, tell us one of the sentences you practiced today, or even better, try creating a new sentence using some of those common words from the 5,000 word list we talked about. We'd genuinely love to read them and see how you're getting on.
Enjoyed the video? Don't forget to like, comment, and share. Subscribe for more English learning videos. See you in the next lesson.